Sculpture and drawing is often confused for being two different things, and they are not. Well, they are, but sculpture is simply, or we should think of sculpture as drawing in 3 dimensions with clay. Drawing is then drawing in 2 dimensions with a pencil, or a brush, or whatever tool you choose to use. So they're more or less the same thing. They're mark making. With this in mind, we're going to start drawing on the surface of the clay. We're starting out differently here than we did with the nose. When we made the nose, we simply started working on the profile of the nose from the side view, without any drawing from the front. Here we're starting with drawing from the front view. So why is that? The nose is a symmetrical object that exists at the center line of the face. This means that we can easily understand where it is, because it runs along the center line, and the only thing we need to know before starting to sculpt it from the side view is where the center line is going, or at what angle the center line does sit. Let's say that the head is tilted, for example. We have to take that into account. The eye is not symmetrical, nor does it sit on the center line. It sits to the left and right of the center line from the front view, and from the side view it sits behind the center line, deeper into the head. This means we have to locate it before beginning to sculpt, since we can't know for sure where it's going to be. Normally, we'd have quite an advanced portrait up there already before beginning to work on the eye, of course. We would have the profile of the nose and the entire profile worked out, and from the front view we would have the width of the eye sockets established as well, and also multiple points on the eye sockets that would mark depths. For example, the back corner, where we go from traveling down to traveling forward. Neither of those are here. Because neither of those are here, the placement of the eye becomes arbitrary. We can place it wherever we want within our clay bed. To keep things simple, I place it in the middle. Since the eye is the focus of the assignment, I'll start there and work my way out towards the other parts we have to consider. The scale is chosen to be twice life size to make it a bit easier for you to see what I'm doing. Life-size eyes are really small and hard to sculpt, so twice life size is going to help both you and me. To start, I measured the width of my own eye with my fingers, which is wildly inaccurate, of course, and then I doubled that length to achieve twice life size, more or less. This is now the measurement that everything else will be built off of. I compare that length to the height of the eye, and I find that the length is about twice the height, more or less. I edited my photo, or perhaps I took the photo this way, I can't remember, so that the inside and outside corners of the eye aligns horizontally. This is not always the case, of course, and individual and different poses will dictate what this relationship ends up being. For simplicity's sake, we're making it horizontal here. No matter what the relationship between the outside and inside corner is, it is something that we need to understand and of course represent accurately before we begin sculpting an eye. The central mark, right in the middle, between the outside and the inside corner, places the middle of the pupil. Of course, the pupil and the iris can move depending on where we look, so you're not always going to find the middle of the pupil at this central mark. Even when it isn't the case, I find it's good to search out what is the empirical center of the eye, what is the middle between the outside and the inside corner. Usually it's very easy to find the empirical center, which is a great bonus, but you can, once found the empirical center, relate things to that empirical center really easily. If the pupil is off-center, compare how much off-center it is compared to the empirical vertical center line that you've established, for example. Once we've drawn on some points that mark heights and widths, we can begin to connect the dots a little bit more. I like to keep the lines straight for now, as it helps in capturing the essence of a soft curve. There are a lot of soft curves in the eyes, of course, and turning them into straight lines will really help you understand what the nature of the curves are. Therefore, you will be able to give them character and keep them from looking generic and boring. You will be able to capture the individual better. Later, these straight lines will become softer and more organic, but they will retain enough specificity so they don't become generic. Look for 3 straight lines to represent the upper lid and 2 straight lines to represent the lower lid. Accuracy is not important at this point, or the threshold for how much accuracy you should expect shouldn't be very high. I'm trying to be as accurate as I can, but at the same time I'm not sweating it too much. It's impossible to be accurate right now. I need more, and I know that accuracy will develop over time as I continue working. It's something we work towards and perhaps gain a hold of at the end, hopefully, not something we get at the beginning and then hold on to for dear life. I frankly think that's more difficult than working towards accuracy. With the drawing from the front established to a satisfactory degree, we can start working from the side view. Since we don't know where the eye is, and since it's not symmetrical, we need to draw it first before we start building it out from the side view like we did with the nose. Of course, I'm laying the sculpture on its back here to get at that side view, so the side view sort of comes up. Keep in mind too that normally you can't get a side view of the eye from the inside corner because it's blocked by the nose, of course. So the only side view we'll use, or I will use, in this instance, will be from the outside corner looking in, just like we would have to do in a regular portrait. I'm strictly going to try and engage with information that I have access to from this side view. From the side view, I can only observe up and down, left and right. Frankly, this goes from any given view, of course. I'll use the vertical centerline drawn through the center of the pupil as my centerline, and I'll build the profile following that line. This is exactly as I would do it if I were sculpting the eye on an actual portrait. While we're just sculpting the eye and not the whole head, I'm trying not to use any techniques that I wouldn't use if I were sculpting an actual head. This process that I'm teaching you today should transition seamlessly into sculpting eyes on portraits. While the sculpture will look weird for a while, I know that I'm solving problems. From the side view, I'm looking to build a decently accurate profile which will become the apex of my forms. Everything will travel down from the profile, or back if you will, into the face. The profile is therefore very important, as if it's not developed well, the sculpture can become flat. I'm looking at angles between different parts of the eye, and I'm adjusting the heights so that they relate better to each other than what I was able to do with the drawing from the front. Heights are important to keep in mind since we're looking at a bunch of foreshortened forms from the front view. Since the upper lid and multiple other forms lean back or forward at an angle, we can't perceive its real height or their real height from the front view. We need the side view, so make sure you pay close attention to that. Always keep in mind what can be observed objectively and from where it can be observed objectively. It will serve you really well no matter the complexity of the project you're embarking upon, be it portrait or figure. Normally, the nose and the front of the brow ridge, both of which run along the centerline, would be established way before the eyes ever gets built. Here, that's not the case. But it's tough for me to judge the eye without having a bit of nose there. That's why you can currently see two profiles, one for the center of the eye and one for what essentially would be the center of the face at the nose. I felt that I needed to know how much of the nose overlapped the eye, so I decided to do it this way. Later, however, I realized what an ugly sculpture this makes for. The cropping and the composition with the nose there just looks really awkward, like we have this short nose or something, and I end up cutting most of this off. However, for now it adds context, and that can be greatly beneficial to you. Not everyone is going to need the same amount of context. Understand that if you have a hard time judging something, perhaps it's because the context around whatever you're trying to judge is lacking. See if you can find a way to increase the context without sacrificing flexibility.